Kim, if you could take us next into the introduction to redistricting mapping software.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We need to just switch out of Reed's system to my system. Thank you, Nick, by all means. What I'm prepared to show you is the next part of our discussion as it relates to software, redistricting software. And this is a site that we have set up for Rhode Island that is available for anybody in the state to be able to look at and draw districts. And so I wanted to show this to you. We will have a link on our website, the redistricting.org site, that will take you to this site. A person simply needs to set up an account, register the account. All it means is just giving us your name and your address if you want to. Certainly your email address, because we want to be able to communicate to you. And so setting up an account is simply that easy. You put in your own password, whatever you want to do, but you can then set up and be able to continue to look at the system and what is there from a drawing standpoint. So that's one way of getting into it. So once you sign in and get access to, you'll go to the My Districting Rhode Island page. And there's several different things that will be there. We're going to be putting up the existing districts so that you can take a look at them. And indeed, you can go in and load up. Now, this is one that I don't have a plan in here, but you can call up a plan. And if I go over to this other tab, let's see, where was it? We will have up for the users what the existing plans are. We've set up all three of the State Senate, State House, and the congressional district plan, so that the user can come in and simply open up a plan, and it opens up then the plan within the website. So this is the website that you would see and any user would be able to see. And here I've opened up the plan that is the State House districts. I'm sorry, State Senate districts. And you can end up zooming down into the State Senate districts and seeing how, what their composition is. You can end up looking at both a map standpoint or a satellite image, okay? So you see that as an underlay, and you can end up then zooming down into it and seeing exactly where you are on that regard. You can end up putting in an address and search for the address, and it will put you right at where that address is, and you can see what district you would be located within in this plan in that regard. It also gives you the capabilities of looking at what is the population. Here we are at the block level, but we can be at other geographic levels in order to assign to a district and build a district this way, with both plan overlays and zooming out to different scales on that side. So we can go to the township level or any other kind of level. Right now we're zoomed down in, we can see block populations, but if we go out, now we're seeing the voting districts, the precinct populations. So all of this information is there so that you're able to see and tie in, and then you can go and change and assign geography. So you can build your own districts within this software and add territory, assign territory, or unassigned territory. So right now, and you'll see the results down at the bottom of the screen that will change whenever you've made a change. So if I wanted to go in and make a change to District 3, so I want that to be my current district, and that's the one that I want to assign to District 3, I could go in here and take that precinct over here that's there, because I'm at the county level. In order to assign precincts, I need to get down to a lower geographic level. So I can end up, yep, there's my precinct level is at zoom level 13. You can see that there. So if I want to assign that precinct, well, Ryan, where's my assignment levels? We'll end up getting the various pieces, but ultimately you'll be able to make any kind of assignment and make changes to a plan and draw your own plan within the system. We'll have the capability of users asking us questions in terms of this and how it operates. We're putting together a user's guide so that is user-friendly for anybody.
Excuse me, Kim?
Yes.
Yep, Rep Newberry.
A couple of quick questions. My memory from 10 years ago, and the technology is obviously 10 years advanced, and is it going to be a drag the line kind of thing, or are you going to click on a particular area and punch in where you want to put it?
It's basically clicking on the area to make the assignment to another district.
But how do you, I mean, because you were trying to demonstrate, I think, was having a little issue. So you would click on the area, but then how do you assign it? Do you move it? How do you know what I'm saying?
By clicking on it, Ryan, you played with this more.
Select assignment mode.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, indeed. All right, so I want to do assignment at a precinct level. So if I go down here to see my precincts, and I want to assign it to, right now it's to assign to District 3. So I want to move over to here, and I can select, so there I'm selecting that precinct, and I can assign it to District 3. There it is.
Okay. So it's not dragging, it's clicking it.
It's
Okay.
clicking,
I know
yeah.
it sounds like a stupid question, but it's just easier to ask them.
No, that's right. That's fine.
Because it was
that's
dragging
fine.
it before, I thought. but
There's a
yeah.
couple of different pieces,
Yeah.
and that's why we'll have this guide. So you can assign or unassign and make the change, and now District 3 has, that precincts, that 1,667 people get added to District 3, and this is the result of that add.
And what's
That was
the
a-
smallest unit you can switch?
You can go all the way down to the block level, census block here. So you can end up then, dividing out, you got to zoom in. So see on the right-hand side where it says map, the map zoom area, scale. So at the census block, you need to be at scale of 15. And down here, I am at 15. So that's a double check.
When you said census precinct, you meant census precinct, right? The reason I asked, you were talking precinct, but you didn't mean voting precinct, did you? Or
What is in here is the voting tabulation districts that the Census Bureau has. We're the ones that put those in to reflect the current precincts.
oh, so did you reflect the actual voting precincts?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And obviously, if you want to move larger areas, you zoom out so you can make it easier to move
Right.
chunks around.
So you can use that assignment layer and assign whole townships or precincts or census blocks.
And the census block cannot be divided for purposes of doing this?
That's correct.
Okay, and my last question is, I know obviously in cities, I imagine the census blocks are probably based almost entirely on streets. Even in rural areas, they tend to be, but is that always the case?
It is, we can go out and take a look over into rural areas, for example, and looking down. All right, so there's the precinct. let me go over into Foster. And I could go down. Now, there's the block. So that's the census block with 68 people in it.
Right, but are the boundaries of that, are they just woods? I mean, do we know?
Usually census blocks are visible features. So in this instance, it goes along this road and along that road. But all of this area, it's got 230 people, but it is very rural.
Okay, the only reason I asked the question was, I mean, we all have anomalies in our districts. I've got one census block, which it's odd because it has a half a street. And so you try to explain to people why they're in my district. You know what I mean? You have to get to this level of detail to explain why, but there are anomalies like that, so.
Well, keep in mind what there is people on this street here or on this street down here, the northern side of that street has got 230 people in it. The southern part of it, if I go down here, that's got 28 people. So indeed, you're going to find that visible features, being streets, are the ones that are dividing between census blocks. And therefore, that's what we're using for the purposes of drawing districts. So wherever that census block is built is going to be that potential boundary in that regard.
And the census blocks were created by the census itself?
Census Bureau, yes, created those. It's an automatic algorithm, but it is using visible features.
No,
If you remember when I talked to you 2 weeks ago, talked about some of the things that we tried to put in with neighborhoods to reflect back property lines. There wasn't a lot to do out here in this town, but we did a lot of that in like Cranston and that sort of area.
Thank
But I
you,
only
Kim.
ask because part of this is for public consumption, so you understand the process, and it is, unless you really pay attention to this, it's hard to understand why boundaries are where they are sometimes, because the
Right.
census blocks don't always make sense.
Thank you.
Sometimes they don't, yes.
Thank you. Rep Diaz and then Senator Sosnowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the census block level, I would like to know what possibility I have to bring information such as ethnicity or community or interest. It's something that I will have access while I'm looking at census block and maybe thinking in drawing a line that I can cast more ethnic group similar at the example you put it together today for us.
Okay. Here is all the data that is in the database. You'll see this along the bottom of the grid here. And so when you select any piece of geography, all of that data is in that block, okay? And so you can end up seeing, and when we meet with each legislator, our intent is to work with you and show you what the census data is showing for your community, because that's the kind of key that we want you to know about, and therefore you can respond back to us that, well, one, is the census data right, or what's your feeling on it, but also what is the community that is interesting and important, so we can see the characteristics, be they ethnic or racial groups coming from the Census Bureau. Right now, the only data that we have from the Census Bureau is the one with race or Hispanic origin. That's the only thing that was in the PL file that was, sent to us last month. Probably next year, we'll get more detailed data out of the census. It probably will not be at the block level, from what I'm hearing within the Bureau, because they're trying to protect individuals' notations of who they are.
Thank you. Senator Sosnowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Kim. This is fascinating. Now, you said this is open to the public, correct?
Yes.
So anyone could, if they decided they wanted to run, or a group of people wanted to run, they could design a district?
They could design a district, they could map a district, they could draw it, and once they are satisfied with it, then they have the capability of submitting it to us for not approval or anything like that, but submitting it to us so that we're cognizant of what their design is, and that design could then be put up on the web so that other people could see it too. So
and how-
all of that is trying to be as transparent as possible. on that side.
Absolutely. I am just, my question is, as we move forward in this process and we receive a lot of different proposed districts around the state, and as a commission, we look at those, we work with you, and if we decide that some of those districts we don't want to adopt, for instance, what type of, will that cause a lawsuit? I mean, I mean, anything can cause a lawsuit. I mean, it's a
Yes,
free
that's
country,
true,
people can do
that's
whatever they
true,
want.
yes.
But I'm just wondering, will that open the door that we will have to justify, if you will, the districts that we decide on versus the ones that have been suggested?
It may, depending upon the kind of suit that might be brought on that side. So what we're trying to do is lay the groundwork for you to provide and see what kind of justifications there might be in terms of creating districts. One of the other tools that is on this website is the capability of not only submitting a plan, but submitting and drawing what's called a community of interest. So that, if you know your neighborhood and you want us to know your neighborhood, you'll be able to come on the site here and draw your neighborhood and submit that as a community of interest, not a district per se, but maybe a community of interest, so that that information can come in. Now, having said that, we need to be careful in terms of that because, for example, in the state of Michigan, I think I told you last week, we have now it's 1,500 communities of interest in the state of Michigan. Some of them are very large, and there's some of them that are small down at the neighborhood area. They probably went too far with lots of different possibilities on that side. So certainly we would love people to be able to use and show their neighborhood, but we know the towns are important here in the state. We know things that are important from that side, so you don't necessarily have to say Foster is my community. Well, we know the boundaries of Foster. We're interested in smaller areas that might be important from your standpoint. And that's the kind of smaller detailed information that we'd like people to show and map out on that side. So tell us your neighborhoods. That's what we're interested in.
All right, thank you. It will be interesting as we move forward. This is my first time on this, doing this, and it's just fascinating to see all the information that we have to work with. But it's also a time where some districts have lost population and some have gained.
Right.
So that just makes a more interesting dynamic.
Yep.
And for folks who are new to the state or new to the political process, that really gives them an opportunity to get more involved
Right.
in this
Absolutely.
whole dynamic. So
And that's
it's
part of
fascinating.
where things are going these days.
Absolutely.
More people wanting to be involved on that side. So that's fine.
Yep.
So we've tried to accommodate that and providing the tools so that they can be involved.
Thank you.
On that
Thank you,
regard.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Kim. Oh, Senator Fulak.
I guess as we initially start off here, is the starting point going to be the existing districts as they are, and then identifying the problems that exist with the existing district? In other words, I know of at least 5 Senate districts and maybe something to the effect of maybe 17 House districts. that are not within the window of the 5% plus or minus. So obviously, if we start from that perspective, then there's going to be some sort of shifting that's going to have to take place because various regions lost population and other regions obviously gained that population that was lost. And then also the fact that the number of the population increased means that the average amount of the Senate district and the House district has increased by that amount. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, to a certain degree. What you have, we're in a situation this decade that is somewhat different than, 2 decades ago when we cut down the members of the legislature.
Correct.
And so what that did, and I've gone through 3 different states in helping them when they have a change in the number of members. And it is an interesting dynamic that comes into effect when that happens, because suddenly people realize that, well, I'm not going to have my own district anyway, because I'm adding 3 new seats in the legislature or taking away 25, like we did, a long time ago. And so that's going to change the dynamic. People look at that differently. Now, we're in a situation this decade where we're not changing the number of members. And so you end up, by its very nature, that people are looking at their own districts to start off with. And that's fine. We understand that. But one of the things that we want to do with each member is have them come in and sit and talk with us, and we're going to show them what's the population and how many people they're going to have to lose or they're going to need to gain, depending upon where they are in the state, and then talk about with them, all right, what is possibilities in terms of where change could take place. And, do we move this way or do we move that way? Keeping in mind the cardinal rule of the redistricting is that any change, you really need to talk to your neighbors. You need to talk to your fellow legislators that are sitting next to you. You need 2,000 more people, and you got to get them from somewhere in your neighbors right around you. So you need to be talking to your neighbors to say, hey, I need to gain X. The only people that are not going to do that is necessarily those at the edge of the state, because we can't go to Connecticut, we can't go to Massachusetts, that sort of thing. So that helps at least buttress you if you're at the edge of the state. But if you're in the middle of the state where you're not on the state border, then not only would you end up changing, but everybody is going to change. And so,
I mean, from the last drawing of the lines, it seemed like it almost started from Newport, for instance. And if a resident of the East Bay noticed a 4,000 population shift of a decrease in the Newport area, what consequently meant that every district in the East Bay had to move north 4,000.
right.
And so it created that dynamic of shifting those districts. And so now the question becomes is, based on those populations, what districts or what areas may potentially be on the minimum edge of that population or district shift, so that it's not as dramatic as potentially other districts that have increased dramatically and maybe putting them at the higher level.
Right, and so one of the ways that we demonstrate that is that 10 years ago, we started at different corners of the state. We started down in Newport and started drawing up to create the districts. We started in Westerly and started drawing, or we started in Cumberland, or we started in different pockets. Because what you see when you're drawing in that manner, you see the ripple effect that's going to take place. And so that's the demonstration that we want to give to the commission and to the public that, hey, there is enough of this shift within the state. You know, we're losing people in Narragansett, and districts need to draw up because there's too many people up on top in Providence County, and those districts are going to have to get smaller up there so that the districts from below can gain that territory and those people. It's that dynamic that we've already seen in terms of the data, and that's what I talked to with you in the very first meeting that we had. What is the dynamicness of where the drawing is going to take place?
Senator
Yeah,
Fulak.
just one more quick question. So when we go on the road, are we going to have those potential districts, or are we just going to be looking for feedback from the residents within those particular areas as to what they would like to see in a district?
There's going to be 2 road trips. First time we're going to go out, we want to get people's feedback. We want to hear their reactions to what the data is showing and their reactions to what they've seen in terms of the districts already. But then we're going to bring that back, sit with the commission, craft some alternative plan ideas, and let the commission look at those, give some further ideas in your case, as well as the case of the general public, submitting plan ideas, so that we can then take all of that information and come up with several different scenarios that we could take back out on the road to get people's reaction to it.
So again, are we going to have an initial map that describes every Senate and every House district as it currently exists, and be able to speak to the fact that some districts have lost X amount and some have gained X amount, and so there's going to be a shifting that has to take place based on those population shifts?
That's correct. So that's going to be that first round of public hearings to let the public understand the dynamics of what we're seeing in the data, that you're seeing in the data, that we're all going to get people understanding what's taking place in the state, so that then we could craft districts for the second round.
Thank you. Rep. Diaz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Brace, I was looking at the list of the districts in the big book.
Yep.
And the district that I have the honor to represent is District 11. And this particular district is very defined by community interests and neighborhood boundaries. For example, I'm representing the historic Elmwood area, which is perfectly defined by 2 streets, and also half of the Washington Park. And I had the fortune that my district increased, so I had to give it away more than 600 voters.
Okay.
So the question to you is, what kind of approach are we initiating in order to figure it out how I maintain the compactness of the 2 important areas that I'm representing and not disrupting the neighborhood in the cohesive feeling of the neighborhood that I am representing? What kind of approach do you suggest? Because I have to start thinking about giving away over 600 people.
Right.
And I know near districts also gained and only 1 lost. So I'm trying to figure it out mentally how I can imagine the line will be drawn, because some have to be changed.
Right.
Thank you.
So one of the ways that we will do that with you is going to be different from other reps, because you're in Providence, and the Providence city has a very good neighborhood map. And so Elmwood is pretty well defined. It is there, and we can get from them, we've had last decade, we can get a shape file of those neighborhoods. And we'll be able to show that on the screen, and when you come in, and we'll have that other piece of information for you so that that other piece will help in the definition of what maybe the possibility is for losing. By having that overlay of neighborhoods, we can then select little areas of that are, you said you had only part of Elmwood, I think, or part of Washington Park, that's right. So let's look at the population in that part of Washington Park. We'll be able to circle that and see what the population is. Does that make up the 600 people that you need to lose or not? But again, so we want to investigate with you what we can, but keeping in mind that you're sitting there in the middle of swirlingness going on around you. So, today you're 600 over, but is your other neighbors under and they need to gobble up that 600? Or those are the kinds of scenarios that we all need to explore to see what possibilities there are. I think most people up in Providence are overpopulated. No? Okay. So there's a bunch of different scenarios, and we'll be creating a number of large maps once we get our plotter in, so that we'll have, like what we had last decade, very large maps that we'll be able to bring in here and show those sorts of things. So that will help in the process, and it'll help when we go out on the road to show the public, here's all the information. You can see it on the screen because we're going to see that more, but we'll have large maps for people to take a look at too. Other questions? Nope. Okay. That's some of what we have in terms of software. So we're going to try to open up starting next Monday for legislators to come see us. So it may be that all of you, want to be in that first cadre of people to sign up. I want you to call Ryan here in the State House, and we're setting up appointment schedules so that, blocks of half an hour, 45 minutes maybe, to come in and sit down with us and take a look at your district, because we want to learn from you. You've got the knowledge, much more so. I got a lot of data. I can tell you what the data is showing, but you've got the knowledge of walking the community, of talking with people, letting us know, where are people looking at Elmwood boundaries or whatever the case may be. You've got that intelligence that we need to listen to and hear, because ultimately we got to figure out how to put all these pieces together. It's a very big puzzle that's got a hell of a lot of parts to it. Yeah, it's a quilt. All right, that's good. Yes. So, we need to work with all of you in terms of trying to figure out how that quilt is going to be made this time on that side. So by all means, come and see us. Our door will be open to legislators, and we're opening this website for the general public to be able to also take a look at the data in that regard. So certainly, we're looking at the potential of if the public can't get onto the internet, we'll have a notebook that we'll be able to man up in the library here in the building, so that the public could come in here and look at and draw or whatever the case may be with Ryan or myself.
Kim, would you just tell us what the website is again?
Yes, www.redistricting, REDISTRING, .org. redistricting.org.
Thank you.
Okay?
Any other questions for Mr. Braze? Anyone else on the committee? Kim, do you have more?
I think that's the main thing. You wanted to talk about the schedule.